Hello and welcome back to the Morning Skate Podcast. I am your host, DJ Mitchell, here with Matt Moody to go over Thursday, January 30th, DFS slate, brought to you by a bunch of places. There's going to be ads and puck luck. Matt, how are you doing on this beautiful Wednesday night as we record?
I mean, it really goes to show that we're technically sponsored by DraftKings and nothing else at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
So
I skip the ads.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine why you would skip my lovely ad read, but
because I'm a jerk.
Your support is appreciated. Anyway, we are live on the YouTubes, so make sure you pop on over to DJ's YouTube channel. If you are not over there yet, there will be some visual accompaniment to go along with our sweet, sultry voices as we talk about the 10-game slate over on DraftKings. If you're interested in recapping the Tuesday slate, which of course had 100K to first, spoiler alert, Thursday night does not have 100,000 to first. I wrote that up over on my newsletter, moods.beehive.com. The Moods letter, as some call it, and I just tried to call it. So I thought Tuesday night was a really interesting slate. Obviously, we talked about it for an hour and a half, so we had a lot to say. But ultimately, I felt like it was pretty fair. I had decent results. I didn't have anything crazy. But I made a little bit of money, which on those high volume slates is always good. DJ, how was your Tuesday night partying with nurses at the Sabres game?
That is not what happened at all, but sounds like a good idea. No, I mean, Tuesday night was good from that perspective. And kind of one of those things where I feel like sports betting is so prevalent now that it's going to come up and then I have to be chill about it, because I don't want to be I actually know a lot of stuff and people follow my bets and you should tail them. But so I was the only thing I'm betting on this game is Tage for, 3 shots. And then the guy's like, oh, can you bet him for more than 3? And I was like, yeah, I might as well bet him for 3, 4, and 5. So I just kind of did that. And then a couple people did it there, and Tage 5th shot was his hat trick. So that was cool. And I kind of got distracted by the fact that all hit for all of us. 2 hat tricks. This is a brand new version of the hat that I was wearing that night, because that went on the ice after Paterka. It was fun times. Betting was fine, I guess. Paige kind of bailed me out. Wednesday's going like dog shit, because that's the way it's going to have to go sometimes. But fun DFS slate. I didn't play the Sabres and I was there, so I am an idiot.
Yeah, if only someone had spent the entire podcast trying to get you to play Sabres. So, but great job betting on Rasmus Dahlin to score a goal. Real good move by you to invest your American dollars in that.
Thank you for that one. Yeah, I mean, whatever. The other thing I was thinking about, it was funny because before the game, I was like, where is Paterka on that goal, that preseason goal and point bet? I was like, he's going to have to start scoring. And it's he knew. He's like, oh, okay, how about 3 more? And it's all right, we're back on base. Let's go. So yeah, the Olofsson is probably going to be the biggest sweat. If Velarde can get to 30, Olofsson needs to get to 20 for $500-600, whatever it was. So there'll be some fun sweats down the stretch, I hope. Some of those bets are absolutely not getting there. So we will see at the end of the day what happens. But all of that doesn't really matter. What matters is Thursday night. There's 10 games. Energy line is up, 15K to first, 444. There's a $20 10K to first. It's not Tuesday night, but there's money and there's hockey, so we should talk about it. Anything else before we get into it?
Yeah, we have a couple back-to-backs. One huge news item is, I believe, Owen Tippett will not play on Thursday night, so we'll try to react in real time to what Torts does, but they're losing 5-0 at the moment, so it's likely to go into blender anyway. But Tippett got absolutely run at center ice, no call, just blatant interference. But penalties are optional in the New Jersey Philly game, even though there's been 18 power plays. It's just 2 teams trying to out dirty one another. I don't know. It's a total gong show.
What is this? What is this? The referees and the referees in the Chiefs Bills game going against the refs going against the Bills. Got them. Sorry, that's all my Twitter timeline's been for a week.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. So
Still
thank you for
today, people are still posting about that, and it's like they're not going to change it now. Like
I mean, what if they do though?
it's like, oh, wait a minute, we might have messed this up. Like,
I mean, hold on,
never
wait
mind.
a
Like,
sec, wait a sec. Has my I don't know if it's been graded as a loss. Let me check.
Your Bills Super Bowl bet.
No, my James
Yeah.
Cook Super Bowl MVP bet.
Oh yeah. I know. It's just I feel bad. Like, I wanted the Bills to win. I mean, I live in Buffalo and whatnot, but it's just like the people
Yeah,
still going
yeah, there it
on and
is.
on. Like today, someone posted a video and I started watching it because I was like, this guy has a 6-minute video just on the game, breaking down every call he felt when I'm like, yeah, no, for real. That is exactly what this video is. I watched like 2 minutes of it. I'm like, there's 4 more minutes of this guy talking about what, like this, it's over. Like, you gotta move on. Like, the Sabres are about to rattle off 25 straight wins and make the playoffs. Like, let's focus on what's important. Okay,
Yeah. Speaking of moving on, I mentioned it already, but I did spend several hours writing up the slate from last night. I didn't have too much to complain about, but
yeah, that's
trust
not
me,
embarrassing.
if something had gone wrong or something had happened to me, like how Mike Berg lost, well, he
Yeah.
didn't lose. He turned $100,000 and a seat win into 15K and a live final seat win. So not a bad night. But trust me, this write up would have been all about how robbed I got and how awful Cronin is for. I don't even know what Cronin was awesome the other night. He had Cutter out on the power play or on the empty net. So yeah, we are back in on the Greg Cronin train. And DJ, is it the first game up? I hope it's the first game up. Let's see.
No.
It is not the first game up, but we are on
No.
the anti Jim Hiller train. That is what
Oh,
this.
yeah.
We're just moving down Southern California. Just moving around. We're finding a new coach to hate. But anyway, let's get
Yeah.
into the action. First up, we have Winnipeg, Boston. You look across the entire slate, though, we have a couple of obvious spots. Edmonton playing Detroit at home is a key one. Both sides look pretty appealing from a trends perspective. We have Vegas facing off of Columbus. I kind of want to say Seattle against San Jose, but Seattle. And we have Carolina playing Chicago. So it's not going to be like Tuesday where there's basically one massive favorite and then a bunch of pick'ems basically. We've got a lot of high team totals to sort through. So let's start though with Winnipeg and Boston. DJ, anything of interest from this game?
It's not our lowest total on the slate, but it rivals the rest. As far as the bottom of the total barrel, 5.5 Fed pick on either side. Winnipeg, a slight road favorite against the Boston Bruins team that we just mentioned got blown out by the Sabres. Yeah, I mean, again, I think there could be some level of ownership that could peek into the Winnipeg side because of how bad Boston's been. I don't think there's any chance of. I don't want to say that. I guess there is at least an semblance of a chance of Charlie McAvoy, but I didn't see anything today to point to him returning.
He seems pretty confident he'll return, and Hampus Lindholm seemed like he would not be returning.
Yeah, that could be the case. So McAvoy, whatever. Does it make a big difference to me? No, I think like Winnipeg one changes slightly to maybe not getting as much ownership, if anything, but like. I don't know. It's a fine play. It does to me feel a little bit like going right back to the well that just was fruitful and saying like, is there still water to be tapped out of this thing? Like, is Boston that bad? Right? Is Swayman going to give up another? It might not even be Swayman, but I don't know if I want to glean too much from last game. Boston's been bad. They've been an exploitable team. It is probably getting away from other chalk, and it's still a really good spot. So I see why you do it. It's not cheap, I mean, it's still going to run you what? Going to run you 21,000 to take that top line. Yeah, you're going to get unique and cute and try to play Nikolai Ehlers, who's 7,100. And like, it doesn't really seem like, I mean, there's upside. Obviously, we know the player he is, but like, it feels like a 7,100. You're paying an awful lot for what really has not been a big boom, boom. And it's been a lot of 13th, a lot of 14s, a lot of one assist here, 1 goal, 2 shots. And Yeah, I just don't know if I'm going to get there here, but I understand the play 100%. It's basically the same. Like it's like the same play as last time with more concentration. And last game against Buffalo, I mean, there's 6 goals between 2 players on the same line. So I get the play. What are you going to say?
I'm going to say that with McAvoy back, I'm not interested in Winnipeg. Like, they're on the road. It's whatever. They're just expensive for my liking. Pretty much across the board. On the Boston side, we don't know what the lines will look like. I didn't see anything from practice as far as lines or pairings. So I'm guessing this is what they're going to go with defensively, but I truly have no idea. I think Mason Lohrei scoring last game keeps him on the power play one. He's 3,400.
Yeah.
Obviously, with McAvoy back, some of the minutes upside is gone, but 3,400 for Lohrei. This is going to be another slate where there's at least a few pretty good cheap punt options at defense that'll have good power play roles. So certainly not like a top of the list type play. But David Pastrnak is also always in play, regardless of matchup. Here, there, everywhere. He's just. I actually looked. He is the second best fantasy player over the last 20 games. By I think by actual fantasy points, and maybe he's third by expected or vice versa. But basically, it's him and Philip Forsberg just like lapping the field right now over the last 20 games. And you can see here, I mean, no other Bruin is doing anything. So it's very clear to me that you can play Pasta one-off, you can play him with line mates, you can play him with a D-man, go wild. But I think Pasta is very much in play, and that's the only guy I would click on in this game, other than possibly Mason Lohrei, though I'd want confirmation on power play to click him on this slate in this matchup.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching Mason Lohrei look very, very good, and watch Parker Wotherspoon look completely just out on his own on an island.
Like
getting
Parker Wotherspoon, perhaps. Actually, I haven't been here twice. I don't even know who.
I mean, Parker. He was the one that got roasted on the goal from the Paterka one, where he kind of like stopped and went backwards, or like sideways, and scored. And you just, I don't know. I think Lohrei is a real good player. I hope they continue to use him in a good role, even with McAvoy coming back. But people will get away from it. I think if you're playing Pastrnak, I would just pencil in Lohrei. It's probably getting there if Pastrnak does. He seems to be that good. We can move on though. Again, I don't have a ton of interest in this game, and I get the plays that we just said, but I'm probably not going to have it. Minnesota on a back-to-back going to Montreal. I am at least some level of interested here. They're currently beating Toronto. That doesn't really matter a ton to me, whether going into tomorrow. But I do think that without a couple guys, but I continue to want to play Matt Boldy. We just talked about how good Pastrnak is, and he's a good clip more expensive. And Matt Boldy's been, I would say, Pastrnak light-esque. Maybe without quite the explosive. I don't think he's had any major explosive DFS games as of late. Last game last slate against Chicago, the 25 could have easily been a lot more if any of them assists turned into goals. I do think there's the slate winning upside in a play like that, and I don't really think it's going to garner a ton of ownership because Montreal is still respected. And as we talked about last podcast, it might not be as warranted as it once was. So I am interested in the top line. Boldy, Eriksson, Zuccarello. Give me the power play one correlation. They're going to see a ton of ice time in a game that I frankly kind of like on both sides. But let's kind of start with the Minnesota. Also, I guess before we get moving too far, it is a 5.5. It is Montreal minus 120. So nothing crazy either way there. But yeah.
Yeah. Fleury narrative final game in his hometown. So take that for what it's worth. 7,900 there. Let's see. Actually, Spurgeon has been power play one, so this obviously has been a bit outdated. I don't think we've seen Minnesota on a pod slate for a little bit. With Kaprizov getting surgery, that's obviously leaving this top line fully correlated. So that's, I think, where you start and probably where you finish. 19.5K for that stack. Liam Ogren, still the minimum. I think he's totally in play as a one-off, or maybe as a mini stack with a Faber or Hartman, maybe Freddie Gaudreau, but I don't know. I don't think you're playing Freddie Gaudreau on this slate. But Ogren will shoot when he gets opportunities. So if you need a punt, I think that's a totally fine option in a pretty good matchup. Um, Otherwise, on the Montreal side of things, I think the top line is definitely in play against the back-to-back Minnesota team. I do wonder about pricing here. The top line is 16,000. Keaton Gooley is out long term, last rated quad, so like
Yeah.
it seems like that's a pretty big deal. I don't know how the D is gonna set up. So again, this is another guess. Last game they did break apart the Lane Hudson Mike Matheson pairing, so maybe that reunites. But I think given the handedness, that they will move a righty into the top four. If they do go something like Jackeye and Carrier as like their second pair, and they play Hudson Matheson, I actually think I like this game a whole lot more. Um, for like a game stack perspective, like I mean, David Savard definitely sucks, but like I don't know, giving him third pair minutes doesn't seem like the end of the world. Putting him with like a Lane Hudson just seems like it kills everything from like a pace perspective. Another interesting wrinkle is that Pizzetta drawing into the lineup basically means that they're playing 11 forwards. How many minutes did Kirby Doc wind up with last game? Let's see.
14 and change.
14. Okay. Every time I saw it, it seemed like he was double shifting. So I'm guessing when they were trailing, maybe that just stopped. But I found that interesting. He was double shifting a lot, so like you can play line A one off. Like I don't think he's guaranteed to get all of his shifts with Kirby Doc. I don't know. I noticed Kirby Doc a lot, but obviously they didn't score a bunch and he didn't play many minutes, so probably not something worth chasing. Anything on the Montreal side that you're interested in here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Montreal at home, it doesn't make it a massive amount difference, but I think anytime you could try to escape the Joel Eriksson Ek line, you could be rewarded. So, like, if the Suzuki line can get away from that matchup as much as possible, that will help. In a game where Montreal did not, well, that's just, you already said it, but was trailing, they never had a power play. I mean, Lane Hudson still played 24 minutes. He was out there a ton. That's good to see. I mean, 2 shots on goal is, you'd like to see maybe a little bit more of those 24 minutes when you're playing anyone in DFS, but 3,900, I think you can make an exception. He did hit the post as well. So right there from him, absolutely, giga smashing at his price. I think you like Montreal, you can play, but of course you do run the risk of like Minnesota putting the clamps down. And I think the narrative will get into some people's brains. Like, this is Fleury's last time in Montreal. There was a whole 32 Thoughts interview with him and Marcus Foligno. If you want to listen to it, it was pretty interesting. I'm kind of talking about his career and stuff and what this game means to him. So there's something to that. I don't think there's not, obviously, like these narratives hit sometimes. And like, is it that they hit more often than they don't? Or is it that everyone's aware of it? And then when you're aware of something, you're going to track it and keep an eye on it. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do think Montreal is, remove all of that, I think Montreal's in a fine spot. It really isn't that bad. Look at this matchup. There seems to be potential for goals here. I like both sides of this game. You factor out all the other ancillary pieces, and you come back to Montreal's in a good spot against a back-to-back Wild team that doesn't have Kirill Kaprizov. Or Brodin, right? Am I losing my mind right now? No, Brodin's definitely out.
Yeah, I don't think he's been playing.
Yeah. Without Kaden Gooley, I think it's only more potential run for guys like Lane Hudson. If they get down in the game, okay, fine. Lane Hudson continues to play. Hopefully they get a freaking power play this time. Like, I really do think it's like, sometimes you just got to remove yourself from all the narratives and say, like, is this a good player or not? And it just is.
Okay, next up we have Washington and Ottawa. We have Ottawa lines from practice today. I can navigate this thing appropriately. There we go. Starting on the Washington side, just going with how they beat Calgary. Ovi, Strome, Wilson, perfectly correlated. Power play 1. Carlson, Chikrin, of course, capping off the power play. McMichael, Dubois, Protas, line 2. And then Frank, Eller, Radish, Duhaime, Dowd, Mangiapane. I am not that interested in the cap side. They just haven't been very good. The price on Ovi's falling, which I think is reasonable. Tom Wilson is getting a bit cheaper, and he's been pretty good too. So I guess I can see it, but I don't know. It feels a little gross on the road in Ottawa. Not a matchup I'm totally excited by. On the Ottawa's front, before I throw it to you, Brady, Stutzla, Giroux, Perron, Norris, Batherson, Amadio, Pinto, Greg. They did not have Norris on the top power play last game in favor of Claude Giroux, and it seems like Nick Jensen will miss Thursday, meaning Hamonic slots back into the lineup alongside Thomas Chabot. So, DJ, what are your thoughts on this game?
I mean, it's the lowest total on the slate. It is plus money on the over 5.5. I honestly, this one I don't disagree with all that much. Like, there's really not a massive discount anywhere. I think that I don't have much to say. I'm not going to play Ottawa. I just don't think it's necessary. Like, Washington is very good defensively. They have made Logan Thompson look like an MVP. I mean, he's better than Connor Hellebuck at this point. And I'm just done playing it's going to snap at some point game. Do I think that Ottawa is in a better spot than maybe the public? And I mean, again, they won't get any ownership. Like, I understand the play to some respect of playing Brady, Stutzel, and whatnot. And like, Sanderson is a legitimately good, decently priced like option in the mid tier that no one's going to play. But on the other hand of this, like, I think Washington's a more interesting play. There's maybe some small level of concern of like how many like you kind of need the power play to get a lot of run, I think, for the Ovechkin situation to get there at his price. But that line is what, 16.8K, all correlated 5-on-5 in the power play. You can obviously stack in one of the defensemen. Might not even be entirely necessary at their prices, but like you could. And like you mentioned last show, like John Carlson's probably a good play, right? Like, and he went for, how many
6
points?
I think he
Oh,
went for 6.
I went for 7.6. I don't know why I thought he had a blocks bonus, but maybe he got one taken away. I thought he had an assist and a blocks bonus, but he only had 2. So I don't know if I just don't know how to read numbers or if I saw that and it got taken back. But regardless, I like the Washington side more. I don't think I'm going to actually, when all said and done, have either of these two sides in my lineup.
No, I think that's right. If you want to play Matt Roy, seems like he's a cheap guy who's been doing stuff. Maybe look into him. 3,100, but otherwise, let's just keep it going through to the LA Tampa game. LA, finally, where we get to talk about them. They're about to get shut out by Florida. Turns out when you scratch Brant Clark in favor of Joel Edmondson, Jordan Spence, Jacob Moverare, you're not going to score any goals. I guess that's free information there for you. But Jim Hiller, absolute garbage fest. Kevin Week is already floating the idea that they're shopping Brant Clark. It seems like he's just full of shit. But if they are, there are literally 31 teams that should be dialing the phone to trade whatever to get Brant Clark. You look at some of his on ice stats this year. He's legitimately their best defenseman. He's going to allow more offense or defensively than the other guys, but he generates so much more offensively than anyone else. You look at Joel Edmondson with and without him. Joel Edmondson is below replacement level without him, and with him, he's a spectacular, number 3 defenseman. So it's honestly, I think Brant Clark actually plays on Thursday night, which is really annoying because Drew Doughty, he's 3,500, like he's power play 1. But it's not like the role for Brant Clark is going to change. Like, we know he's going to play 12 minutes, even though he shouldn't be playing 12 minutes. So all that to say, the team looks enticing. Kempe and Fiala, like their prices look really good for what they've been doing. I just have no trust in this team's ability to produce goals. Again, it starts at the back end. Drew Doughty, obviously his first game, did not look very good. No one else on this blue line can make a pass. So, I just don't trust anyone here. Kevin Fiala, the only guy I play from LA. But any Brant Clark complaints before we move to Tampa?
I think you already summed up most of it. It's just, to me, you're sitting here like, what is the only problem with LA right now? And it is the fact that some games they cannot score. What happens as soon as they take Brant Clark out of the lineup, they're down 3-0 with about a minute left against Florida. So unless if they find a way to score in the last minute, they're going to get shut out. And it's like, how do you possibly think the answer is to bench Clark out of all of these? It just blows my mind, especially when you think what happened in the playoffs. It wasn't that they were outmatched obviously by Edmonton, but they just couldn't score. Like at the end of the day, like unless if the goaltenders in Edmonton were completely flopping around, which they did at times, they could not score. They could not create offense. And I mean, this is just a real bad omen. I feel like, and like for a Kings team that I truly respect, and I think we both were like, this is a good team. Like, and there were people that were betting them to miss the playoffs, and I'm like, I totally disagree there. And to see them just kind of, it feels like they're phoning it in. It just feels like the coward's way out to bench the younger guy because of just a bunch of cowardness. And like, that's how you lose because you're a coward. This team is not interesting to me on a back-to-back against Tampa. So yeah, not going to play it. I don't care if Clark's in or not. I get the Fiala thing. I'm not going to play it.
I will say be on the lookout. Obviously playing his first game of the year, there's a chance Drew Doughty just doesn't play the second half of a back-to-back. And if that happens, I do think that Brant Clark is like a crazy speculative, 2%er type play. Because, we're not going to get guaranteed power play time for him. Obviously it should be Jordan Spence, not Joel Edmondson power play 2 right now. But like, Jordan Spence has been power play 1 without Doughty. I mean, that's clearly a crock of shit, and they just got shut out. So if Doughty for some reason doesn't play, I do think it's very possible that Brant Clark is back to power play 1. And yes, I will be, lining up to bet on LA in, losing on Kevin Fiala props and things like that. But like Fiala has actually been awesome. He's been shooting. He's not getting the results. We've seen coach quotes about it. And again, trust the donkey as far as you can throw him. But Hiller seems to be of the mindset that like if he just keeps shooting, he'll get out of it, which is the exact mindset you want your DFS players to have. So Kevin Fiala is pretty interesting if they make some changes. If not, though, Tampa, coming off of a 4-1 loss to Chicago. Pretty ugly stuff out of them. No word on Vasilevsky's availability. He did not practice today. We also did not see lines. I don't believe.
Well, they didn't have Kucherov either.
That's right. We didn't have Kucherov in practice, but that seemed like it was just.
I don't know if that Vasilevsky. I wasn't paying attention to goaltenders because who cares? But
yeah, but we did see Gensel point Kucherov last game. Guessing that sticks. No, we did see lines, but it was Cam Atkinson in place of Kucherov, which is very clearly a placeholder. Hagel, Strelly, Geeky, Chafee, Paul, Gonsalves, and then Gergensons, Glendening, Isamont. It's possible they go back to 11-7 with Gonsalves there on the third line. He's been a candidate for getting healthy scratched for 11-7 in the past, so keep an eye out for it. I don't know if they even have another defenseman to go to because I think Lilleberg is still suspended. Yeah, he's still suspended. So one more game for Lilleberg. I don't know if they have a 7th defenseman, but at least keep an eye out for it. Obviously, Kucherov's going to play a ton. The matchup doesn't look phenomenal because, the Kings, for all of our complaining, are still a very sound defensive squad. But 25 minutes of Nikita Kucherov could always bear fantasy fruit. So any interest in Tampa here?
We really could have summed up this whole game with Kucherov's an option. Okay. That's it.
You nailed it.
Nice. I don't think I'm playing Darren Radish at 4,200. I don't know what his ownership ended up being. I absolutely understand the play, but like that other than that, let's not waste a bunch of time on a game that I just guarantee I don't end up clicking on. Back-to-back Kings feels just very painful. And we have a game in the next game that I actually find very interesting for both sides. This game is a 5.5, by the way. That's Tampa, LA nonsense. Our next game, on the other hand, is our first 6.5. If you're ready to move on to Frank Nazar's Chicago Blackhawks, as everyone was expecting them to become.
I mean, how can you not love Frankie Nazar just showing up and being like, "Hey, Connor Bedard, you need a good line mate? I'm here. I'm here for you, bud." All along. Carolina looks pretty good. Chicago, not so much. Freddie Anderson drew back in on Tuesday, got a shutout. I believe that was his first start. So good for him. I have no interest in Chicago. Just note that Landon Slaggert drew in and he, I think, scored. He scored from Reichel, and so whatever, 3K for Landon.
3 shots, a block, and a goal for Slaggert. And it's funny because we talked about that. We're like, oh, he got called up, like probably be in. So I just thought like, hey, like retweet it, like Slaggert is in. And someone's like, who in the world is this? And I'm like, no, I'm just saying like because we kind of mentioned that might be a change, just in case anyone was like checking out the video, checking what's going on. And of course he scores. I mean, truly he did smash. Like if you played Landon Slaggert, I mean, all the, your nuts were on the table. You could have won the slate. But unfortunately
I played Lucas Reichel and Frank Nazar because Slaggert was on the slate, but I'm like, I don't like,
yeah.
I actually looked at his AHL stats and he had like 1.7 shots per game in the AHL. I'm like, I'm just going to play Nazar because what I did is I played the full top line Chicago, Tampa. And then, of course, you need punts. So I'm like, well, I'll go Seth Jones, Alec Martinez, and 2 Chicago punts and just say, I'm going to be a donkey fest. And I got half of it right. It's just the Tampa didn't show up. So,
yeah, I actually, like someone's mentioning here. I mean, Slaggert hasn't played this year, but he did play last year. And I kind of looked into some of his stuff from last year in the NHL, and it was just pretty underwhelming. And I just didn't think he'd get the minutes, which was true.
You can see it on the right side of the YouTube, actually. This is all per minute.
Yeah.
So, like, he was like you said, underwhelming in all.
Underwhelming. Like he had a couple goals there, but not a lot of offensive production in his short stint. So I didn't really think of him as much of a play, especially when you're saying Frank Nazar was on the slate at 2,800. Like you kind of have to have rocks in your head to click on a guy that was $300 cheaper who did not profile well and was not on the top power play or playing. Well, but he wasn't on the top power, but not playing with Connor Bedard. And like you just couldn't have gotten worse results than 19 minutes of Frank Nazar in a 4-1 win, getting a 1.5. That's a tough break for the Frank Nazar players like yourself.
Okay.
Hasn't really looked to be
time talking about fucking Chicago.
All right, you're right. We should move on. Okay. I mean, this is our first chalk situation of the slate. I would say anything else so far tickle your chalk fancy, or are you good to say Carolina is really our first chalk?
I think Minnesota gets pretty hefty ownership, but we'll see.
Okay. Look, you know what? That's fair. I kind of forgot about that, but I was the first to say that playing against Montreal was smart. And I was brave for that. So, okay. Carolina, as you have up here, Mikko Rantanen, Sebastian Aho, Jackson Blake, Hall, Kotkaniemi, Svechnikov, Martinuk, Stahl, and Jarvis, otherwise known as Jarvis and the Dad line. You could really pluck a name out of this and pick anything you want, and who knows what's going to happen. I think I'm going the Aho Rantanen route. I might not play Jackson Blake because no one's going to make me. I'm thinking about just playing those two. I think they'll be hopefully a little less owned. I think people just instinctually won't want to click on 8,500 Mikko Rantanen, not with Nathan McKinnon, of course. And I think I'm going to be brave and bold and say that this is when Mikko Rantanen breaks the slate.
TJ,
what?
Team total is going to be a 4.5 or whatever. You're not getting Mikko Rantanen for low ownership. I hate the
actually. You know what? Guess that money line.
It's like minus 440,
455. You idiot! Yeah. So close, but so far.
I mean,
all right, you're right.
Like it's such a.
I am going to be sneaky and play Mikko Rantanen and Sebastian Aho. I'm going to sneak it by everyone else, tiptoeing by everybody.
The real thing to watch here for the sickos is Jack Roslovic status, because he missed last game due to illness, and that left them an 11-7. Riley Stillman, blast from the past, dressed for them. I believe he played forward, but I could be wrong there because it seemed like Gostisbehere and Walker played their normal 16, 17 minutes. But if that's the case and Jack Roslovic is not playing, it does two things. One, it makes Sean Walker on the power play viable. 2,900 punt defenseman, just sort of like, he's going to hee-haw his way to, a point and a blocks bonus or, 4 shots or something like that. And then two, it makes it far more likely that they're rotating their top 9, because, you're just going to sit the fourth line for long stretches versus, Roslovic is a real NHL player and not someone made up like Juha Jaska. So I like getting, if Roslovic remains out, I really like getting, a Svechnikov or Jarvis alongside Rantanen and Aho. Like it's not going to be low owned. Trust me. It's not like, this combination is going to be 1% owned, but you're just adding on what I think is pretty certain production. If Aho hits, Rantanen and one of at least Svechnikov, Jarvis, I think hits in a pretty big way, given the matchup, given the volume that should come if Carolina struggles to score. Like there's just so many outs to 20 points for each of these power play 1 forwards that I have no problem picking 3 of them. If you play Svechnikov, I have some time for Taylor Hall. I think he's getting a lot of, rightly so, a lot of, he's dust. He's just, whatever, cooked. He played 18 minutes last game. And again, part of that's because the fourth line didn't play. But like, he was getting a very regular shift in a game they were leading throughout. He had a really nice play on the Svechnikov goal. I think that there's some time for Taylor Hall to recover and make it worth 3,700 to play in this revenge spot. I also think he gets some ownership, so be careful. Like, I don't want to play Taylor Hall at 13% owned, but if it looks like he's going to be 5% and Svechnikov's going to be 12, like, I'm pretty interested in playing Taylor Hall alongside Svech. Otherwise, Aho, Rantanen, Jarvis, totally fine. Limited interest in Chingasisver as well. But basically, if there's a hurricane and you click them, it's a good play.
Yeah, I will say, and I don't need to take the screen over if you don't want me to, but if you look at like who paired with who forward and defensive wise, the Walker Gostisbehere third pairing played like all of their minutes with Stallmark, Nuke, Jarvis at 5-on-5, which
I was on the road, so be careful.
Yeah,
it often shifts from home and road. Just as a FYI, like my guess is they're gonna shut down the Bedard line with Martinook and Stahl and just play Burns and Slavin alongside them.
It's possible. Okay, never mind my point. Yeah, just throw out the dartboard. If you land on Jarvis, Svechnikov, Rantanen, or Aho, you start there and then build it out, and they're all honestly good. Exactly. It really, like, I'm not arguing, like that is actually true. I feel like that people are going to look at the value in Hall, see what Svechnikov did last game, and I think they're going to go that route. And this is going to eat away enough ownership because people just aren't going to be able to afford Rantanen and Aho. Like, we're going to talk about some of the chalk on this slate. We already talked about Minnesota. You cannot afford Rantanen and Aho. We haven't talked about the obvious chalk, and that is Edmonton. So yeah, and then Jack Eichel to kind of close out the show here. So like, it's going to be hard to afford Rantanen and Aho. Maybe there's not quite enough to jump off the bandwagon entirely, but it's a fantastic spot. This next game is another spot that is interesting. If you're ready, we can move over to the Islanders in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, the Flyers just getting absolutely pelted by New Jersey. Head into Long Island with, what do you know, pretty good underlying expected goals numbers, and their actual goals numbers are going to look a lot worse after tonight, I'll tell you that much. Without Owen Tippett, the Islanders have 0 defensemen, just they're all hurt, every single one of them. So actually, I guess the Flyers are at home. Whatever. Islanders, Lee, Horvat, Barzal, Duclair, Nelson, Palmieri. Their pairings: Adam Pelech, Scott Perunovich, Romanov, D'Angelo. Romanov giga smashed. He played, he was their number one, and Tony D'Angelo played a real solid shift too next to him. The Tony D revenge spot, 4K, power play 1. I think that's somewhat interesting. And both George and Mayfield got benched against Colorado. Like, they just went to 4 defensemen for the entire third period. I mean, Scott Mayfield is absolutely abysmal, and he was the second highest owned defenseman on the slate. So just like, give your head a shake there, projection donkeys, and think about, what you're playing into ownership. Scott Mayfield's not what you want to play into ownership. So, when the projection says it's too good to be true on Scott Mayfield, it's probably too good to be true. Anyway, I like Tony. I mean, he's just a great person. And then the top line, of course, Lee, Horvat, Barzal. That line's going to run you 18.8K. The matchup is about as good as it gets because I think that this line thrives on efficiency, and that's what the Flyers struggle with. It's not that they struggle with, limiting chances against. They struggle with the actual keeping of the puck out of the net. So any interest in the Islanders here?
Yeah, I mean, everything you've said so far, I agree with. I think that really the Tony D'Angelo play is not, if he's paired with Romanov, he's getting his run. Like, we know what he can do as a fantasy asset. We know what he can do on the power play. If they keep him with Romanov, if you check it before the slate starts, make sure if that's there, he's going to get a ton of run with one of the better defensemen. I would say a complete NHL defenseman. Like, I'm not saying Alexander Romanov is a generational talent. I'm saying that he makes the defenseman he's paired with better for sure. And we know what this guy can do. So I think if you're playing the Islanders in any capacity, it makes a ton of sense to play D'Angelo. I'm not sure if I want to actually tout Romanov as a play. I know he double bonused and scored last late. And then before that had 2 points, 4 shots, and a block. The blocks bonus is always in play here. This is not a shot first guy. So this recent run is kind of, getting back in the lineup, getting a ton of runs. I'm not saying it's unplayable as much as like, I think you kind of probably have rocks in your head if you're clicking on him over D'Angelo because you're chasing that score. So yeah, I like that pairing a lot. I like Barzal's price a ton because he is like if they get there with that efficiency, it's because Barzal is making things happen. So like I think that D'Angelo, Barzal, and then you can kind of fit in from there. Originally I probably would have told you, at the beginning of the season, if Anderley was, 5,800, that was unplayable. I can't say that anymore. Like he's just been good. I'm not, it may be overpriced a little bit, but this is a guy that has hit blocks bonuses. He has hit shots bonuses. There is upside in his game in general. So I couldn't talk you off of playing all 4. And I don't think, again, you're not wrong if you just play D'Angelo, Brock Nelson. Like that's where I think really no one's going to go. Brock Nelson's come back into form to some respect. The time on ice is there. He just isn't quite the finisher he once was. But at 5,200, I think there's dumber plays on the slate. And he's playing with Palmieri and Duclair, who can play hockey at least. And it's not like, Holmstrom and Cizikas or something. So, yeah, I'm in on the Islanders. I'm not going insane, though, because we do know what this game could be. We talked earlier about, like, yeah, do I really want to play, like a back-to-back Kings game? Do I really want to play back-to-back Flyers versus Islanders? At the end of the day, that's what the question is. It's a 5.5. It's a dead coin flip, -110 on both sides. I don't have a metric ton of time here. Noah and Tippett, but just more ice time for Noah Cates and others that are just going to be boring and not do anything and check people. I could see myself just end up getting off it, but I do like the Flyers at this point.
Yeah, I don't think people tune in for your ownership takes as gospel, but just pointing out that last slate, Brock Nelson was nearly 10% owned against Colorado. So I do think people will go there. It's just a price thing. I mean, his historical rates are obviously very strong. From a long-term perspective, he's been fine on the year. Obviously, this line has not been very good as of late. Duclair looks really hampered by whatever kept him out of the lineup for a couple months there. And Palmieri looks like he's 36 years old. So, like, it happens. But Nelson, D'Angelo, it's fine. It's not going to – I don't think it's going to win you the slate, though, is sort of my point there. On the Flyers side, we do have a ton of intrigue because, like I said at the outset, Owen Tippett got hurt, did not return, did not look good, seemed there's something wrong there. So I'm expecting him to miss on Thursday. What that means for the lines, you tell me. Basically, everyone played over everyone to close the New Jersey game. So I expect whatever we see in warmups is going to at least garner a look from me. Is it Konechny, Frost, and Michkov? Like, yeah, okay, you sold me. Like that's the sort of thing that I'm on the lookout for. If it's something like this, but just without Owen Tippett, like I'm not interested in the Flyers. They fucked with the power play. It's still terrible. The Noah Cates Forrester line has obviously trended back toward their baseline level, which is still solid for the price, but 10,000 for a line that's aggressively meh and not fully power play correlated with the fuckery that Torts did. I'm just far be it for me to tell you this, but I'm not that interested in the Flyers without some Torts magic in elevating Michkov up the lineup, which again would feel like a magic act. Any interest in the Flyers from you?
Not right now. You said everything that could be said and more. So we can move on to the best team in the NHL. Cronin is back. We love him again. We never doubted him for a second, even though he didn't play. Owen Zellweger, I forget his name because it doesn't matter. I mean, we're Jackson Lacombe guys now. Right. We're out here touting only Jackson Lacombe.
We're part of the Honey Hive.
The Honey Hive. I like it. I'm in. I believe that was always him and not Beyonce or I don't remember what you something.
It's the Beehive.
The Beehive. Okay. You know what? I almost had something there and I fell off.
Moods.beehive.com. Beyonce is just sponsoring.
She does sponsor that. I did get that note actually. But back on track here. Are the Ducks a good play? I'm gonna go with probably not. I don't think I'm gonna do it, but I'm willing to listen to you. You know what? I actually a long time listener, first time caller. I'm gonna hang up and listen to Matt talk about the Ducks.
What else does Mason McTavish need to do to tell you that he's a good play? I don't know. I do not know. He's literally their best player. He's 4,300 going against the Flames, who stink. He's got Cutter on his wing. May I remind you, Cutter Gauthier was out on the ice with the empty net in a 1-goal game last night.
Yeah.
Last night was a very unserious game. I grant you that. There were several times in the Discord I'm like, this game is not real. Like, there's nothing about this is real. These teams just not real. Whatever. Grant you all of that. Still, Cutter Gauthier was on the ice with the empty net. Something clicked. Something has changed. I think you just buy it. I think you just buy, 7,800 for these two. If people want to go to the Calgary, 7,800 pairing of Backlund and Coronado, I say let them. Like, you take Mason fucking McTavish and you jam it down their throats, because this dude is on a heater right now. He's got an awesome shot. I think I said, when he's taking those one-timers from down low, he looks like Leon Draisaitl. Go find the goal he scored last game.
Yeah.
Tell me that release does not look like Leon Draisaitl.
I'd agree.
Like, this dude just has it. He has it. 4,300, not nearly expensive enough. And I'm playing with Jackson Lacombe. This dude sucks, but guess what? He's Jacob Trouba level sucking, where he just gets fantasy points. So, like, I'm here for it. Just ride the McTavish heater, I think, until the wheels come crashing off, and I'm not expecting them to come crashing off against Calgary.
Okay. If I were to have told you at one point that, over the last 3 games, Cutter Gauthier has 15 shots plus blocks, you probably would think, man, that's got to be a lot of shots. But he has a blocks bonus in the last game, 2, and 3. Like, he's playing hard. He's blocking pucks. He is shooting again, obviously, in that mix. He's kind of, it's like, I do think at some point, if you got to be brave, you got to be bold. If you're playing McTavish and you're not playing Cutter, I think you just circle back. Like, I don't know what punt you're playing that you feel so much better about. Like, this is a guy that has every metric you could point to he should be an incredibly good DFS player, and it just hasn't come together fully yet. And we've blamed Cronin, but it's also got to be on him. He's got to finish and get that scoring touch that at the NHL level, which takes a lot of time. I think that's the only play here, though. I'm certainly not playing with top line. We should move over to where a lot of talk will be, because, like I'm saying, I do think there's a few very expensive pieces that are going to be very high.
Yeah, I heard the DJ Cronin apologist right there. Just want to note that for the record.
Listen, he's just the thing is that he's not the biggest donkey in the NHL anymore. He's still in the top 3. Let's not get it twisted. But, like, Hiller has taken over the donkey of the slate.
He took the hooves.
I have to be nice. Like, he's improved. Again, we have to reward improvement. We don't want to diminish it. We want to say, good job. You did good. But in reality, he's still like the second or third worst coach in the NHL. And actually, the other worst coach in the NHL, Waugh, did something smart. He benched Mayfield and George. Like, thank you. Play good players. Play good players and win hockey games. Like, play them. Like, I don't know. He's still one of the worst coaches. Like, he's still bottom of the barrel. We're talking bottom 3 for both of them, but they're not worse anymore. Now let's talk about the Flames, the team that I know you love, but this is where the chalk will be, I think, somewhat concentrated to, even though the prices have gone up a good bit, because A, it's against Anaheim. B, there's multiple cheap options here that are clickable at the very least. And I don't know if I said this, but they're playing Anaheim. So people will play it. Edmonton, we haven't talked about yet. Vegas, we haven't talked about yet, but there's a lot of potentially high ownership pieces. We already talked about Carolina. People will click on Tampa because Kucherov's a good play. They're going to find their savings with Igor Sharangovich. They're going to find savings with Matt Coronado and friends. So if you were going to find your savings and or just play against Anaheim, because Anaheim's Anaheim, who would you play on the Calgary Flames?
Pass? I don't know. Tyson Barrie. There's your answer. I don't know if Barry's actually going to play in this one. Obviously, they just lost to Washington, but Tyson Barry did immediately join the lineup, play power play, and get an assist. So, like, Yahtzee. Um, I don't know. I think though that with Calgary's missing Kevin Ball, week to week due to injury, Barry is actually interesting. I don't know if that means I want to play, Backlund, Coleman, Coronado, Barry. Like,
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to be playing McTavish, so like, good luck. But I understand the appeal of this line. Again, it's remarkably cheap. It's still 12.5K, and they're going to total 32 expected fantasy points over the last 10, compared to 22 actual. That's a pretty huge gulf, and I think that's more reflective of the talent level of Backlund and Coleman than anything else. But like, if they get a little bit of a good luck, then they're going to smash because they're putting up the shot attempts and, they're getting the ice time and they're going to block shots, so on to rack up fantasy points. So I guess that's where I would go. I mean, Sharon Govich did not sneak by the field. He was 17% last slate. So like
had a 0.
Didn't do anything. So maybe some people are burned. But he doesn't correlate with any of his line mates on the power play. Kuzmenko 2,600 sucks. Pospisil 2,900 is at least young, but also sucks. So I don't know.
I'm trying to find.
Are you doing anything here?
I mean, it's the Coronado line or nothing for me. Probably, okay. I probably take at least another look at Sharon Govich because I really, really do like the player. But Pospisil and Kuzmenko, that's a tough draw. I mean, that line that was the line that got just dunked on.
I mean, they were missing Rory Kearns. So
Jesus Christ, they don't really play the fourth line, so like there's good minutes to go around. I think. There's upside in this Flames team, obviously, but I think you kind of said it pretty well. Like you could play Barry, Backlund, Coleman, Coronado, and take whatever stab you want at a top stack, and like that is a good lineup, right? Like that's building a good lineup. Are other people going to do it?
Said I'm not doing that, but
no, I know, I know. No, I'm saying like you said you could do that, and like that is a good lineup, but I think a lot of people are going to see that it's a good lineup.
Yeah, hard to agree there.
That's the point. So yeah, you could pivot off of that, but that's the right play.
Next up, we have Detroit Edmonton, and what is a very, very interesting game.
Yep.
And what's really interesting about it is that the expected goals are off the charts for each team at 5-on-5 based on the last 10 game trends, and it's just like a league average shot attempts game. So like whatever's happening over this stretch for both sides, by the way, it's something to do with like shot quality over actual quantity, and it's working for Edmonton, not so much for Detroit, though just their most recent game we saw Detroit giga smash, because okay, there we go, it loaded, because we now have, without Patrick Kane, a fully correlated top line with Marco Kasper, Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond, that checks in at 15.3K with a 39 expected fantasy points per game run over the last 10. That is massive. And then you look at the actuals, and it's also at 39. Like this line is producing. They are dramatically underpriced. Obviously, interest is going to flood in on the Edmonton side of this game, but do not discount the fact that Marco Kasper is actually producing. Like it's not just garbage. It's not just luck, basically. Without Kane, he's actually manning a flank on the power play, and he's doing stuff to warrant a 3K price tag. And then, of course, Larkin and Raymond have also been very, very, very good as well. So, DJ, did I sell you? Will you be considering Detroit on Thursday night?
There's one massive fly in the ointment when it comes to Detroit. Do you know what that is?
Is it that they suck?
Nope, there's a narrative here. All right, I'll give you one hint, and if you don't get it, I'll move on. Who started the last game for Edmonton and why in that?
I do not know.
Calvin Pickett started, and they did not have their normal goalie that they would have had as their backup.
Stuart Skinner.
He was not there because
I don't know. Did
he's a
something
new
happen?
dad. He gets the new
He's
dad bump.
New
He's
dad.
back.
Oh boy.
New dad bump. Everything you just said is out the window. There's not even worth discussing anymore. I mean, yes, it's a great play. It's great leverage off the field. Unfortunately, he's the new
If you
dad.
see a giant roaming around the ice, that's Elmer Soderblom. So Soderblom Rasmussen is actually going to be a really interesting line to watch. I can't wait to see
13 foot of man. That's not an exaggeration. That is that is at least 13 foot of people. Hold on.
Yeah, against Victor Arvidsson, that'll be fun.
Oh my god. Yeah, 6'8" Elmer Soderblom. Again, I knew it was close to that, but that is unbelievable. So, I mean, I'm nearly 100% positive. Michael Rasmussen is at least 6'4", but
yeah. What did I do? I just clicked on Soderblom somehow.
Oh, I clicked on Michael Rasmussen, the cyclist. He is not 6'4". I was like 5'9". Oh, that's a cyclist. He's 6
Can
foot.
You imagine a 6'4" cyclist?
Yeah, 6'6". So 6'6" and 6'8" center and winger. I don't know what Christian Fischer is. I'm not gonna look.
He's a normal looking dude.
Yeah, that is so much person.
Yeah,
it's a lot of person.
So yeah, crashing, banging, just all the good stuff out here in Detroit. Yeah, that top line is legitimately in play. On the Edmonton side, we did see lines in practice today. McDavid between R&H and Connor Brown, Draisaitl between Podkolzin and Arvidsson, and then Henrique between Skinner, Hyman. I mean, I don't love this. It's not very fun. Leon Draisaitl's now 9,100. Like, he's been priced to where his production is. So I'm not saying you can't play him, but he's not like a screaming value like he was when he was 1,000 cheaper. We've seen Podkolzin fall off a bit. We've seen Arvidsson fall off a ton. Especially because Arvidsson was supposed to get power play cracks without McDavid and just lost that role to Jeff Skinner almost immediately. So, like, I'm a little worried here about just how to stack this. Like, I would just rather play Detroit, I think, than spend 18.6 for McDavid Draisaitl. Like, what are you doing here with Edmonton?
If I was playing Edmonton, I would play Draisaitl. Yeah, I'd play Draisaitl and probably just him and maybe Arvidsson. But I don't think I might, but like I think, like, right now, if you said build me a lineup and you have to stick with it, I'm playing Carolina and I'm playing Rantanen, Aho. And I don't think I'm going to find the cap to get to Edmonton, unfortunately, but it's a good play, right? I just think it's a good play for the wrong reasons. Like, we're kind of like, we're doing the opposite right now with this game. It's like, it looks unbelievable on paper, but why does it look so good? It looks so good because the goaltending's been abysmal. Well, if we're going to play things because we're like, oh, well, what if the goaltending gets bad? Like, this is kind of playing things saying like, well, the goaltending's going to stay bad. And I don't know if I buy that. Like, I'm the Stuart Skinner joke I made, obviously, is a joke. I don't really think he's a better play because he's a new dad. Whatever that is, it is. But like, I don't think he's a terrific goalie. That is like someone you should be actively targeting, right? Like, this game should not produce a metric ton of volume. Are they going to stay ultra efficient? I don't know, right? Is there any goalie on Detroit I think is more or less than league average? No, not really. Like, and Edmonton is massively overpriced in a game that I really don't see a perfectly correlated GPP winner. So, yeah, I think Draisaitl is a fine one-off. I don't really have a bunch of interest elsewhere. Like, this is a kind of, again, a goalie-driven in an opposite spectrum than we normally talk about, in my opinion, play that I think I'm just going to end up not playing on either side. But I guess tentatively it's Detroit or nothing because it is just underpriced, where Edmonton feels at least correctly priced, if not overpriced.
Yeah. I think Evan Bouchard is interesting. How good Casper, Larkin, Raymond are, especially under McClellan. They've been giving it up the other way too. Like, it's just they're super positive offensively and a bit negative defensively. So, like, if Bouchard and Ekholm get tasked with the shutdown role, I honestly don't know between Draisaitl and R&H McDavid who would go out against them. My guess is it's McDavid, but like, that Draisaitl line's been so good, maybe it's them. but we can pretty much be certain that Bouchard is going to be out against those guys, and that makes him a double bonus candidate, in my opinion. Getting McDavid back on the power play is also huge, with that suspension. We sort of talked about that last week. But just to gravity McDavid has, Bouchard getting that one-timer off from the point, it's very clear to me that he could score 2 goals, have 5 shots and 3 blocks, and just like break the slate for 6,600. And we don't have Cale Makar on this slate. We don't have Rasmus Alien, who broke my heart the other night. So I think that's a really good spend defensively.
But we do have the best defenseman in the NHL on this slate.
Yes, the greatest player of all time, Zach Werenski, is next up for Columbus heading into Vegas. Vegas looks pretty decent, but it's not really because Vegas is doing a ton. They're basically league average at the moment. And it's just Columbus is flatlined because turns out bad players are bad. But their goaltending's been rock solid, so they've been still winning games. And obviously, like you said, Werenski's been a hero. You look at the stats, and he's not actually been that great. 13 actual fantasy points per game over the last 10. Like, trust me, that's still really good. But it's not the 17, 18 that he was at a few weeks ago. So 8,600 is clearly ridiculous. You don't need me to tell you that. This top line priced up 16.8K. Fantilli's been very good, and he's rightly 4,800 now. So I'll throw it to you. But any interest in this Columbus side heading into Vegas?
I would say a very little bit. You said priced up, and I agree it's too expensive, but it is come down quite a bit. And in reality, they're fine. I don't think I'm getting there, but I wouldn't fault you entirely for considering it. Just because I do think this line is very, very predicant on Zach Werenski getting there. I just don't see it happening. And I just don't think you can click on 8,600 Zach Werenski on this slate and feel good about your lineup. So I'm more of, again, this is another one of those situations where I'm just kind of penciling down, maybe keep an eye on Columbus, because at one point we were talking about how this line was 23,000 or whatever. And with Fantilli, who has been offensively and from an upside perspective, better than Sean Monahan for sure, you're getting quite a discount now on the whole line, but especially him. So it's interesting, but not probably in play for me tomorrow. I am decently interested in Vegas. I wonder what your thoughts are on if ownership's going to get there, but is there anything else you want to say on Columbus, or just move it over?
Yeah. No, nothing else on Columbus. So this might be a little too inside baseball, but the chatter on the Stochastic show, and even in the Occupy Fantasy index and the ownership stuff, had Eichel as one of the higher owned plays of last slate at home against Dallas. I'm just that doesn't sound right. But we talked about it on the pod. Eichel's price has fallen. He was 9K, a few weeks ago, and even I think a week ago, and now he's 8K. He was, I think, 8,200 last slate. But what happened was that either my guess is this was organic and it wasn't an intentional thing by the field. But Eichel being high owned turned into Eichel just not getting played because he wasn't a great play for the price and ownership, so on and so on. And so it sort of leveled itself into Eichel being a 4% play. And again, that was against Dallas, so it might not be the same thing. But we are talking about a line that is 19K that has 2 players in Barbashev and Stone who are very hit or miss, meaning you can't give them very high medium projections. So I do kind of think that this line could be reasonably owned, especially with the options we have for coverage, with Carolina, with Edmonton, that Minnesota-Montreal game, Tampa. It's a good matchup. I'm not sure the field will see it as a great matchup. But I'll need to see what the team total is at tomorrow morning to make a final decision there, because personally I'm not that interested in Vegas. I showed it, they've been fine. They're actually losing games. It's basically their power play that's hot right now. So that leads me toward Dorofeyev as the player of interest, as Dorofeyev, Hurdle, and Olofsson. They check in at 15K, and they have some really solid underlyings, especially for Dorofeyev and Hurdle as well. So, but I think that's the line that gets owned here. No one's missing this. And especially if you pair it with Noah Hannafin, for example, their most common 5-on-5 line mate for that hurdle line for 3,500 Hannafin, like that's sort of where I could see some steam coming, but maybe not so much on Jack Eichel. Maybe that's just wishful thinking, but that's my thoughts at this moment.
I feel like I agree with everything you're saying, and that was actually my question. If you didn't go too deep into the weeds, and let me tell you, the weeds they were deep within, was going to be like, do you actually think people are going to click the buttons on Eichel and Stone though? Like that's sort of the I think the genesis of this conversation. I don't think so. Like I do think people will click on Dorofeyev and Hurdle because they've been good and they're really not that expensive. Like it's still, I mean, it's the exact mid range, right? There's plenty of punts we mentioned, and there's plenty of upside plays that are a bit more expensive. And like you can build a really easy lineup that makes sense, but it is much more difficult to play Eichel and Stone and Theodore and build a lineup that feels quite as crispy. I think that's my interest here. If I'm going to play it, like I'm not taking a half measure with Vegas here. I'm taking the full measure. I don't think people are going to like get to Eichel maybe as much as they will. Like I think the hurdle line will be more owned. I do. And again, does anyone listen to this for me to give my garbage ownership takes? Probably not. I don't think people are going to get to Jack Eichel here, though. I think it's just not going to happen. And that's, again, my like Carolina, Vegas are kind of the two that I'm like, okay, these are the ones I want. Like, how do I build around both of them? So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Call me crazy, but the two teams that have the highest implied team totals, I'm actually interested in.
And if you're worried about Vegas ownership, even on Eichel, I mean, just play Shea Theodore. He's not going to get owned at 6,100. Like, I guess I would be very surprised if he were to get owned at 6,100.
Yep.
And he's not a great play for the price. Like, he's not a one-off in my opinion. But if you're stacking, I think that he's very clearly got upside to hit 30 at that price tag.
Yeah, and so, it is a concerted effort to put Theodore and McNabb with the Eichel line. It feels like when they're at home. So
yep. Precisely.
Like that is just like, yeah, unequivocal. Like if you're playing and you're thinking, ooh, power play, Theodore, Dorofeyev, Hurdle, I mean, you're really trying to thread some needle that just probably doesn't need to be thread. So yeah, fully agree there. We can move on to our final game of the night. And honestly, a game that could see some level of ownership, right? Like the Seattle team has been definitely targeted quite a bit. They've certainly had some games in their recent run that will make you think maybe you should send down Grubauer. And they said, you know what, after the Anaheim game, we got to do that, right? We got to waive this guy because he couldn't stop a puck from anyone on Anaheim. McTavish, okay, we'll forgive you on that one, but the rest, there were some yikes moments in there. So it will not be Philip Grubauer.
Indeed. Yeah.
Askarov will be in net. Askarov is turning into one of my favorite interviewees. I'm trying to remember what he said after the last game. They asked him something. Oh, they asked him what was going through his mind on the penalty shot. And he was like, no. I was like, oh God, I like this guy. That would be what would go through my mind too. Like, definitely watch that clip. For some reason, the San Jose goalies are just always having fun. Devin Cooley is just like last year was like, yeah, the world's going to end and I'm going to die one day. And then Askarov is just Askarov. So
yeah, well, you need to be a special type of person to play goal behind this team.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Sharks, though, where, I think there's an obvious stack that you're already outlining. The 16.8K Eklund, Celebrini, Foley power play correlated. I mean, there's the Jake Wallman of it all at 6,200. I think if you had 9 blocks against Pittsburgh, I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to figure and say not to play Jake Wallman because if I do that, someone's going to tell me he's actually good. And I'm going to say, okay, fine, play him. I don't care. I'm not going to. What's your interest level in this top line in San Jose?
Yeah, I would say it's moderate. There's a question about Mikael Granlund playing. So keep an eye out for that. They used Carl Grundstrom at center in practice to fill his place. So even though the coach said he's a question mark for Thursday's game, that makes me think they're at least expecting him to play right now. But if he doesn't play, then I think that would elevate either a Wenberg or a Will Smith to the top power play, which would be like a 3K power play one guy. And maybe you could use that to make it even cheaper than the 16.8K that it is right now. And, replace a Toffoli or an Eklund with the cheaper 3K piece. So keep an eye on that. I don't think I'll get to anything but the top line on this 10-game
Yeah.
slate. Given, I think there's a ton of options that we've already covered that I prefer. But I would at least keep an eye on the second line because 13K for Zetterlund been really good. Will Smith is obviously one of the better prospects in the league. And Michael Granlund, of course, just continues to do Michael Granlund things. So that line's okay. And going into Seattle, they're going to miss the Benier Schwartz Kako line, which has been, legitimately good. And they're probably going to match up with the Stevenson line, which has always been terrible, for the entire season that they've had Chandler Stevenson. Getting to Seattle, though, we don't know if these lines will stick as they're currently built. My guess is they do because that Beniers unit has been, really solid together. But keep an eye out for changes. Against the Sharks, though, literally anybody here is in play. Like any interest in playing 6K Jared McCann, where I don't think he'll get a ton of ownership. Like, what are your thoughts on Seattle here?
I mean, I really don't know why you'd get cute and go away from the Kako Benier Schwartz line. Like, it's a little bit expensive, of course, but it's fine play. It really is. Like, it's not fully power play correlated, but I still think you could include Kako because we know what kind of player he could be, but you really don't even need to. You could play Beniers, Schwartz, and Dunn. It's the Sharks. At the end of the day, it's the Sharks, right? And like, I don't think people are going to click on it. Vince Dunn has back-to-back shot bonuses, 8 shots, 5 shots in his last 2 games, all the minutes in the world. 5,800, no one's going to play him. I think there's a story here you could write and figure out. You're kind of alluding to it maybe, but like the top power play with Dunn, it's Benier and Schwartz, Bjorkstrand and Stevenson last game, not McCann, not McMahon.
Yeah, I think that's right.
McCann. Yeah. That's what they ran last game. So like, I don't know, whatever. I could see me taking a look at Benier, Schwartz, and Dunn. I could see it, and like a couple punts, and then you play like Vegas, or you play like just Rico and Aho with like again a few punts. Like these are the kind of lineups at least I'm going to look at. So I am actually interested in Seattle. Like I do not think it's going to see much ownership.
Yeah, on Vince Dunn, the DFS price is obviously just insane. 5,800. If you want to go there, fine. But take a look at the sports books. I think it was Monday. I think Monday they played the Oilers, and obviously that's a way different matchup. But Vince Dunn was minus 120 for 2 shots, crazy number, and that I think saved my Monday because I bet it up to 4, and he hit that 6-1. So at least take a look there. If it's anything, in the 1.5 range, probably not minus 120 anymore, but maybe in the matchup and with his trends, maybe it's like minus 140. That would be pretty interesting. Anything higher, maybe just let it go. But at least take a look there because that is something that I noticed the other day. And he's a long-term shooter defensively. Like, he's just that sort of profile. He should not be a 1.5 in a pretty good matchup. So.
Good betting take. Good betting take. All right.
We like to make money here, not just do nonsense. But speaking of, let's do some nonsense. Top stacks, guaranteed goals.
Yep. Top stacks. Last time, neither of us said Buffalo, so we lose. I remember what your stacks were though. But it wasn't Buffalo.
Rangers and Montreal. Not great.
And I said
Carolina, I think.
Did I say Carolina?
Yeah, no. I think you're Branson and Donkey.
I said Colorado.
Oh, that's right. You were Colorado slappy.
I have no idea what my second stack was. Was it Montreal?
No,
I don't think so. That was yours. I definitely I may have said Calgary. I may have said I think I said I was Washington. I said that is 100% it because I was trying to play McKinnon, Nachos, and Washington won. That was my theory. It would not have worked. You would not have won the slate. But regardless,
can't confirm.
I don't think either of those were all of those were obviously good calls. It just didn't work out. So we're going to give you more good calls, but this time they're going to work out. So Matt, I think I went first last time. Why don't you give me the first top stack?
Top stack. Detroit won. Casper, Larkin, Raymond. Lock it in.
Take it to the bank.
Yep. Edmonton
Okay.
is a bunch of donkeys. This game, I think, will be a lot of fun. So I like getting the fully correlated line rather than whatever nonsense we're looking at in Edmonton. That's just really hard to get correlation.
Give me Aho, give me Rantanen, and you know what? Give me Seth Jarvis. The man's right here. He's right next to me right now. He's hanging out.
Okay.
You don't have to play Jackson Blake. No one's going to make you. Just play Seth Jarvis. You know, they hook up on the power play. Seth Jarvis scores another goal. You're sitting there just hooting and hollering as they win 7-0. You're winning the slate. Okay, perfect.
All right. I will go with Minnesota. So I will do Boley, Eriksson, and DeGrello.
I think that makes a ton of sense. I think considering what I've already put into my lineup, I'm going to take the cheapest, best option, and it'll make you happy to know I'm going to take McTavish, Cutter, Gauthier. Is there a third? Yeah, it's Jackson LaCombe. You fit all that nicely in there together, put it all just nice, warm, and neat. I mean, you still got money to play with. Did I lose you?
I'm just gonna pretend I didn't hear you say that. So
What, the Anaheim thing?
yeah, if you said it, it's gonna be absolutely donkey steam, just nonsense. So
I don't think it will be.
I think it will. You're my barometer here.
But we're a part of the beehive.
It's not the beehive, it's the honeycomb.
The honeycomb.
The honeyhive. That's right.
The honeycomb? I don't know. Honeycomb's a cereal.
I think
Anyways,
a little too on the nose. So the honey hive for the Lacombe, yeah, like I think that's how you gotta structure it. But I don't know. I'm not a social movement engineer.
Not yet. You haven't really
That's
applied
right.
yourself. I feel like if you actually put in the time and effort, you could be. Are you staring at any guaranteed goals that you're ready to just jump right on right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Bo Horvat, 6,700. Price is rising. That line though, I think is really interesting, and maybe the price keeps people away, and you get some Tony D action returning to the South Philly roots. Maybe he'll be protecting the Columbus statue in Columbus Park here. Like, Tony D will have a day tomorrow, and I think Horvat scores a goal thanks to it.
Is that so? Yeah, I think sometimes the donkeys are right, and I do think tomorrow they're gonna find some level of success with Dorofeyev. Although I think this is gonna put me right in the same range as you, but that'll be okay.
6,700 Horvat.
Oh yeah, 5,500. Okay, I thought he was cheaper. Yeah, Pablo Dorofeyev is just like if you're betting a goal, like he's a good goal bet. Like I you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying I don't think that's crazy. Like he's probably going to be like 2-1 comparatively to like other nonsense, and like he's out there to score. Okay.
All right. Let's do Shane Wright, guaranteed goal, 4,200. Okay. You took McTavish. We all know McTavish is a guaranteed goal, but that's no fun.
You did it last slate. You did it last slate. You want to do it again?
No, because you took it in your stack.
But you took it last slate for your guaranteed goal.
Right, and it hit because I'm sharp.
Okay. So wait, you want Shane Wright?
Okay, do you want to bet on Mason McTavish to score a goal and play him in DFS and lose? Yes,
I do.
Okay, let's do Mason McTavish.
I mean, it's a much, much better bet. Like that's not even a question. I'll go to Foley. Tyler Toffoli.
Mr. Tyler. Okay.
Like the volume's there. Like he's back, it feels like. And hasn't scored, lately. Like couple 3 games in a row here without one, but the shot's there, the danger's there. The Celebrini and Eklund are with him. They're and power play 1. So like it's not for lack of trying. So yeah, give me the full man to score against a very bad Seattle Kraken team.
Yeah, Toffoli is trying his best out there, and that's all we can ask for from our guaranteed goals.
These are good. These are good.
They tried their best.
These are good. These are good calls. I'm happy with these.
I mean, they're no rats for Halloween, but hey.
I was mad about that. That one I was mad about. You had no reason to do that. Like this.
Hey, directionally accurate when 2 fucking Buffalo Sabres were a hat trick. I think that gets a directionally accurate.
I will award you 1 singular directionally accuracy.
Yeah.
You can put that on your wall.
If you haven't yet, make sure you check out my recap of the Tuesday slate in my newsletter, moods.beehive.com. Also on my Twitter and Discord and in the description of this show. Otherwise, DJ, anything you want to mention here before we head into Thursday?
Don't be afraid to hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, and go Sabres. 25 straight starts now. Well, now being Friday.
25 straight. Oh, 25 straight wins. I see. I thought for some reason I was like 25 straight starts. I'm like, has UPL played 24 games in a row? I was very confused. Yes, no, you're right. The Buffalo Sabres are actually the best team in the NHL. Tage will score 100 goals for the remainder of the season, and we're hitting this Lindy Ruff, Jack Adams bet out of the park. Alrighty. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to follow me. I'm on Twitter at Fake Moods. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94. If you want to subscribe to his bets, it's what is it called? Dub Club.
Dub Club.
Dub Club. Yes. They will push those bets right to you rather than you having to search them. And make sure you get in on the Discord action. If you're the sort of person who likes to sit here and listen to us talk for an hour and 20 minutes about the slate, I guarantee you the Discord's got a bunch of degenerates you didn't know you needed. So shoot one of us a DM and we can get you set up in the Discord. Thank you all for listening. From Doug, from DJ, from myself, have a good Thursday, everybody, and we will see you.